My adopted sister forged document to steal my inheritance. So, I fought to take back everything. I'm 26 years old. I never thought now. I'm sitting in a courtroom, staring at my adopted sister across the aisle as she tried to steal my inheritance through forged documents. I guess that's where 20 years of enabling someone's worst instincts leads you. I have two sisters, one younger sister, Sarah, 24, and one adopted sister, Holly, who had the same age as me. Looking at Holly now, perfectly coiffed and dabbing at dry eyes with a designer handkerchief, it's hard to believe she's the same scared little girl who entered our lives all those years ago. Holly came into our lives when I was 6. I still remember the day my mom brought her home. She wouldn't let go of her stuffed rabbit. Her mother, my mom's sister, had just died of cancer, and her father disappeared right after the funeral, leaving nothing but a hastily scrawled note about not being able to handle it. Just like that, Holly became our responsibility. The adoption was my father's idea. She needs stability, he argued during one of their late-night kitchen discussions they thought I couldn't hear. She needs to know she belongs somewhere. So Holly became my legal sister, complete with a new birth certificate and updated school records. My parents threw themselves into healing her broken heart with the same dedication they brought to everything else in their lives. My parents did what they thought was right. They formally adopted her, gave her a home, and tried their best to heal her broken heart. Maybe they tried too hard. Every tantrum was met with gentle words, every demand fulfilled, every transgression forgiven because she's been through so much. I watched as my straight-A student parents somehow convinced themselves that Holly's C grades were her doing her best, and her habit of skipping school was just part of processing her trauma. The forgery started in high school. Holly had perfected Dad's signature by then, using it to sign fake sick notes and permission slips. When the school finally caught on, she turned on the waterworks about how she just wanted to make Dad proud, and somehow she ended up with a new phone as consolation for her emotional distress. I was the bad guy for pointing out that she'd been spending those skip school days at the mall. Things got better when Holly met Trevor during her second attempt at community college. He was everything she'd always claimed she wanted, rich enough to keep her in the lifestyle she felt she deserved, and clueless enough to buy her victim act wholesale. They moved to Oregon after a whirlwind romance and wedding where Holly made sure to emphasize her tragic past in every speech. I'll never forget her wedding toast, thanking her aunt and uncle who were kind enough to take her in. Not mom and dad, not the parents who raised her, but aunt and uncle. My mother cried in the bathroom afterward, though she tried to pretend it was just wedding emotions. Then came the night that changed everything. One rainy night, one drunk driver who thought he was fine to drive home from the bar, and suddenly both my parents were gone. The police said they died instantly, small comfort though that was. Sarah and I were devastated. On funeral day, Holly showed up in a black designer dress that probably cost more than the entire service, clutching Trevor's arm and making a show of her grief that would have made any Hollywood actress proud. But I noticed how her eyes kept darting to our family lawyer during the service, calculating even in her supposed mourning. The will reading was scheduled for 3 days after the funeral. Holly insisted on being there in person, though she'd been happy to attend family events via FaceTime when it suited her. Our parents' lawyer for the past 20 years started reading the document with the same steady professionalism he brought to everything. Sarah and I inherited the family home, the beautiful Victorian our parents had spent 2 decades lovingly restoring to its former glory. Holly got their savings account, a sum that made my eyes widen. I thought that would be the end of it. I really should have known better. The renovation was Sarah's idea. We were sitting in the kitchen about a month after the funeral, surrounded by boxes we still couldn't bring ourselves to sort through properly. Mom always wanted to redo this room, Sarah said softly, running her hand along the dated countertop. She had all those magazine clippings saved. Maybe it would help us feel closer to her. The project gave us something to focus on besides our grief. We hired contractors, picked out materials, and started the process of making the house our own while honoring our parents' vision for it. That's when Hurricane Holly made her dramatic return. She burst into the house one morning while the contractors were installing cabinets, waving a document and screaming about fraud. According to her, she was supposed to get the house. The signature looked exactly like Dad's. Of course it did. She'd had decades of practice forging it. When I refused to hand over the keys, she went nuclear. Suddenly, my Facebook was flooded with messages from distant relatives asking if it was true that I'd fabricated documents to steal Holly's inheritance. Friends started avoiding me at social gatherings. Even Sarah's co-workers were giving her side-eye. Holly had spun a convincing tale of being the poor orphan girl whose greedy adopted siblings had stolen her birthright. She'd even dredged up childhood incidents, carefully reframed to paint herself as the victim of our jealousy and resentment. The court summons was the last straw. I'd spent my whole life watching Holly manipulate my parents, but I wasn't about to let her manipulate the legal system too. My lawyer was confused at first. He'd been present at the official reading, after all, but something about the paper quality of Holly's will bothered him. Legal documents leave a trail, he explained. Let's follow this one. I arranged to meet Holly at a coffee shop, playing the part of the guilty party, looking to negotiate. She was so confident in her victory that she handed over the document without hesitation, launching into a speech about how she'd always known I'd try to cheat her eventually. The forgery analysis came back within days. The paper was new, the ink less than a month old. Holly had gotten sloppy in her desperation. The judge was not amused by Holly's attempted fraud. Not only did she lose her claim to the house, but she also faced potential criminal charges for attempting to defraud the court. She and Trevor left town the same day as the ruling, but not before she screamed at me in the courthouse parking lot about how I'd always been jealous of her and how I'd pay for this somehow. Classic Holly. Even in defeat, she had to cast herself as the victim. Sarah and I finished the kitchen renovation last week. We hosted a small dinner party to celebrate, inviting the friends and family who'd stood by us through Holly's smear campaign. As I watched my sister laugh with our guests and our parents, now our home, I thought about trust and consequences, about the fine line between helping someone heal and enabling them to hurt others. My parents trusted that their love could heal Holly's childhood wounds. Holly trusted that she could lie her way into whatever she wanted. I trusted my instincts about her fake will. 2 out of 3 isn't bad, I suppose. The house feels different now, not just because of the new appliances and countertops, but because we finally cleared out the last toxic presence that had lingered in these walls. Sometimes love isn't enough to fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let them face the consequences of their actions. I still have Holly's stuffed rabbit tucked away in a box in the attic. Sometimes I think about sending it to her, but I doubt she'd want this reminder of when she was just a hurt little girl rather than the person she chose to become. Besides, she'd probably just try to claim it was made of solid gold and sue me for that too. Sarah suggested we start a new tradition, Sunday dinners in our renovated kitchen, just like Mom used to host. But this time, she said with a smile, no drama allowed. We're making new memories in this house now, ones that honor our parents' legacy of love and hard work rather than enabling and denial. And if there's one thing this whole mess taught me, it's that family isn't about who you're obligated to trust. It's about who earns that trust day by day, choice by choice. Holly sent a letter last week, full of her usual manipulative non-apologies and hints about reconciliation. Sarah and I used it to start the fire in our new kitchen fireplace. Another item from Mom's dream design. Some bridges once burned should stay that way. We're done enabling, done excusing, done pretending that love means letting someone hurt you. The house is ours now, filled with light and laughter instead of walking on eggshells. Last Sunday, as our chosen family gathered around the dining table, friends who stood by us, cousins who saw through Holly's lies, neighbors who brought us meals during the court battle, I finally understood what my parents had tried to teach us all along. Family isn't just about shared blood or legal documents. It's about the people who show up, who choose to stay, who fight for you as hard as you fight for them. Sarah caught me getting emotional over the dishes that evening. You know, she said, drying a wine glass, Mom and Dad would be proud of us. Not just for keeping the house, but for finally learning to set boundaries. She was right. The greatest inheritance our parents left us wasn't the Victorian with its gleaming hardwood floors and updated kitchen. It was the strength they built in us, the capacity for love that survives betrayal, and the wisdom to know that sometimes loving someone means letting them go. Every morning when I unlock our front door, I whisper a quiet thank you. Not just for the house itself, but for the lessons learned within its walls. Some inheritances are measured in square footage and bank accounts, but the most precious ones are measured in courage, truth, and the unshakable knowledge that real family is earned, not owed. And in the end, that's worth fighting for. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.